Okay, logging in LibreNMS. Now, we all know that logging is a huge part of network monitoring and troubleshooting, but we really need to figure out how we can get all these logs in a central location. And you might already have a centralized logging solution in place, and by all means use it if you're happy with it. But if you don't have a logging solution in place, or you just kind of want to know what LibreNMS has to offer, we're definitely going to go into how we get logs from our devices into LibreNMS in this video. Now, I will say if you're trying to do this with like thousands and thousands of devices, it might be better to look at Graylog. And Graylog is kind of its own separate software platform, but it specifically deals with logs, and it does it very well. And the reason I mentioned Graylog is because it's very nicely integrated with LibreNMS, so we can actually view all the logs in Graylog within LibreNMS. So it's very, very nicely integrated, and I would highly recommend it. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on getting logs directly into LibreNMS. Okay, so we're going to start here by heading over to the Syslog documentation on the LibreNMS Docs website. And really all we have to do is some stuff in the shell here, and we're going to be installing the Syslog Ng. And really this is kind of a go-between between the syslogs coming into the server and them going to LibreNMS. Really what it's doing is just listening on port 514 here on both TCP and UDP for syslog messages, and if it gets those messages, it forwards it off to LibreNMS here. So it's basically just a little service that runs and takes messages in and sends them to LibreNMS. So we're going to go ahead and get started installing this here. Let's get into, we can be root for this, so apt get install syslog ng. Okay, I already had it installed, and we're going to edit this file. This is the syslog ng configuration file. Okay, and we're just gonna actually just copy and paste the lines that we need, because a lot of this stuff is already in here. They're just showing you the whole config. You could probably just copy and paste this whole thing too and delete all this, but I like to be dangerous. So let's put this in here. I'm sorry, that was not, that one's already in there. Okay. Let's go to destinations here, add this one. And we're going to add this one at the bottom here too. I know this one's not in here. Log paths. There we go, log paths. Okay, and if you know about Syslog Ng, you already saw I made an error here. When they have this config here, they actually have s.sys in here, but the default has s.source or s.src. So when I originally did this, I was having all sorts of problems. It wasn't liking everything I posted. I looked at this like 1,000 times, but it was just s.sys instead of s.source. So I just need to change this one down here to that s.src. And we can save this. And we usually just restart it here because this will tell us if we actually messed up that config or not. And we need to restart it anyway to make sure it works. And let's do a status on it. There we go. Active running. Looks all fine. Okay, let's see what else. We need to restart Syslog Ng, which we did. We need to enable Syslog in LibreNMS config. Now, I know this config isn't in the web GUI, so I'm going to have to do it through the config.php file here. Okay, I'm just going to add this to the bottom. And while we're in here, this is for SE Linux, and we're not going to worry about that. And this is for our syslog if you wanted to use that besides syslog ng, but we're not going to be using that either. Logstash, actually never even used this, but we also need to do this right here in the config. This tells you how long it's going to keep syslog in its database for. So right here, it's going to keep it for 30 days, and you can adjust that as needed, but after the 30 days it'll start purging them out, and it'll start doing that when you run this daily script, which I haven't talked about yet. right here, this daily.shell. But that and validate.shell are one of your two most important tools in troubleshooting LibreNMS if anything stops working in it. So this should be all we need actually to get getting Syslog into here. So let's go into our local host because that thing probably generated a bunch of logs. Yeah, see these are the polling runs. You can see all the polling runs here that are completing and going off. But yeah, we're getting syslog data in here. Yeah, 947, 2147. Okay, so that's good. And we can also view syslog messages under Overview and Syslog. And this will be all the devices in LibreNMS that are currently sending syslog messages into LibreNMS. And you can just scroll through here. And you can also filter on different values up here and set timestamps. This becomes very important when you're trying to figure out a log message that came in at a certain time. So you can just, if you know around the time the event happened, you can just filter on here. And this is searching all the devices, so you can kind of get an idea of what happened around that time between all your devices. So another part of LibreNMS logging is actually called event logging, and these are enabled by default. You don't have anything to do or enable anything. This are just basically messages that LibreNMS is kind of figuring out about the device. When I was doing the applications video here, I was discovering Nginx application, and it was saying it was okay, and it was discovering MySQL. So you can click on these and kind of see different things that have happened here. I've renamed my location, all sorts of different things like interface are changing, maybe their speeds are changing. So this is all comes by default. You don't have to enable anything to get this logs here, but the syslog one is the ones we just went through and enabled. Okay, so we want to alert on one of these syslog messages here that we're getting in here, and let's just maybe search on this one. Maybe we care if polling device 13 is unreachable. So we create an alert just like any other alert rules. Let's just say, I don't know, syslog error LibreNMS. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say syslog.message. Let's say contains, because it's going to search anywhere in the message. So if any message in syslog, any message from any device that comes in matches this, we're going to alert on it. Okay, this is an old one I had in here. Let me delete this one. All right. So it's not alerting yet because we have to run the polar script. So remember, syslogs are actually coming in constantly. As soon as a device sends a syslog message, it's going to send it to that Syslog Ng service and forward it right into the LibreNMS database. So when all you really have to do is click refresh, and you're going to see the most latest up-to-date syslog messages in here. You can see that they're all coming in just second intervals here, so you know that this is not really following any 5-minute or 1-minute polling interval. You're going to get these messages as soon as they come in here. The issue is that when you create an alert rule, that alerting only happens when the polar script runs. So you have to wait until the polar script runs, and when that runs, it's going to check the syslog for that message. So it'll go through the whole syslog and get that message and then alert on it, and we should get it soon. But let's just run the polar script manually to kind of force it here. Okay, there we go. So we have a message in here. Let's open this up. So what this did actually was give us every single message that matched that polling device 13 in here. And this might be pretty long if you can look at my scroll bar over here. This is actually pretty impressive. Can't believe this actually worked. So what we actually did is we looked at the entire database there's a syslog table in the database. We looked at the entire thing for that message. So my LibreNMS thing has been polling here for the last couple days. So I'm looking at every time it couldn't pull that device I added. That's actually this device right here, this 13. And you can actually see device IDs. If you just click on the device, you'll see it up here at the top here. It'll say 13. So it's kind of helpful when you're looking at the polling device 13. You're like, well, what's that? I don't know what 13 is. Yeah, so that's just a device. Everything has a device ID. Every device has a device ID. So that's important to know. That'll become really important in the API because we deal with device ID sometimes in there. So as you can see here, this is kind of crazy. Can't really do much with this. So what we really need to do is we need to set it to say, okay, I don't want to see every single syslog message like that. I just want to see the ones in the last like 5 minutes. So we can actually create another rule here, syslog timestamp. Now we're going to do greater than or equals to, and we're going to do this command. Now, I couldn't figure out how to do this on my own. I had to admit, I had to go to Google and search around a little bit, and luckily some other LibreNMS users have had the same exact issue. And really what we're doing is we're just saying, I want to see all the syslog messages in the past 5 minutes that had this message. And this is adjustable too. You can actually change this to 10, I think 15, 30. There's a list that I found recently, and let me go find that real quick. Hold on. Actually, I was going to find it for you, but you know what? Let's let me show you guys something here, because this has helped me a lot in kind of getting my bearings around programming and just all sorts of stuff. Because, you know, when you run into issues or errors or stuff and you've tried everything to fix it and you just can't figure it out, usually what I do in here is I just go in here and try to figure out what error. I'll just copy and paste the error literally in here and search for it and figure out where it's actually being generated in the code. And then I can kind of figure out from there, maybe I did something wrong, or maybe there's even a bug. Maybe there's just a bug in here somewhere. So here's actually these macros that I was talking about here. So let's see here, macros past 5 minutes. So past 5 minutes right here. Past 10 minutes, past 15 minutes, past 30 minutes, past 60 minutes. So you can do all these in there. So anything in here, you can just copy and paste that 5, 10, 15, 30. So it would just basically get all the messages within those last couple minutes there. So we can go ahead and save on this now. And now this should kind of settle down a little bit. But we have to wait for the Polish script to run. So let's go ahead and just force that real quick. Now we should have at least one, because that device has been polling every 5 minutes. So okay, we have 4 in there. Did I put 5 minutes? Yes, I did. Let me pull it again real quick. Let's just see. I think I know what's happening. I think it's pulling it actually more often because it's down. Yes, I think that's actually what's happening here. I think it's actually pulling it more often because, yeah, okay, well, there you go right there, waiting 60 seconds for a retry. Okay, so, yeah, so the one bad thing about this is that you don't see actually the timestamp that this message came in here. Now, I'm pretty sure when we get into alert templates and transport, you can actually put that syslog timestamp message in the template to send off to the transport. So that might help a little bit better, but from in here you can't really see it much. But this just goes to show you can alert on syslog messages in LibreNMS. It does work. Okay, so we really haven't had any other devices sending in syslog messages into LibreNMS here, but we have LibreNMS set up to ingest syslog, so enabling other devices to send syslog messages to LibreNMS is really on that device. Every device you kind of configure syslog a little bit differently. In this syslog documentations page here, they do list a couple of ways of enabling logging to the LibreNMS in here, so you can go through here and you can also just reference the vendor documentation. So for example here's my little HP switch, and you can see that really all I do is go to config T and logging and the IP address. That's really it. You can actually go into logging here, syslog, and just filter on this is my switch IP, and you can see here that I have a bunch of messages that came in here. Okay, so that just about does it for syslog in LibreNMS. I will make another video about Graylog integration with LibreNMS, but just keep in mind when we do that, we can't alert on the syslog messages when we integrate with Graylog. So we'd have to do our alerting all in Graylog. So if that's a deal breaker for you, then you might just have to deal with this or find some other solution. So again, thank you for watching.